did people literally notice the blood on my face and just didn't even care enough to inquire as to what was going on or see if I was all right or even tell me? I'm confident in saying I know that the world would be a better place if we all worked together, if we cared about each other, if we pooled resources and shared in the wealth, and ideally if we shared more common goals as well. It doesn't mean we all have to agree on everything or want the exact same thing. No one's going to be able to say that I didn't make the effort. So I'm pretty sad today. Angry too, but not as much now that I've had a little bit of time. I get worked up over a lot of things. I worry about a lot of things. If you're hoping for some sort of well-structured video, this is not it. Don't expect much eye contact with the camera. I did write some notes. They got a little chewed up by my little cow bunny friend that was featured in one of my other videos. He's a hungry little boy, even when he has plenty of food. He just goes around chomping everything, and unfortunately my notes got a little chewed up by him, but that's okay. I can read them well enough and probably don't even really need them. But anyway, that's enough preamble. I'm already droning on. We're only like a minute in. I don't necessarily know where to start with this, but I think this video is going to be called Be Good to Each Other. And I guess we'll just start. It goes all over the place, but I guess we'll start with more personal stuff. So if you've seen my other videos or you've read the about of this channel, you know that I have schizophrenia. And something I often think about is I wish people over the years would have just asked. And what I mean by that is just, it could have been as simple as, well, how to put this in a way people will understand. I got diagnosed in 2022, but most of my symptoms began in 2018, and I had some prior to that, but I guess that's when it really kicked off. And so I would have had to come across a lot of people over those years, and I knew quite well a lot of people. And there were a lot of signs that something was not right with me. I mean, it got very blatant at points. So there was one time where I was so deep in psychosis, and something separate, I truly don't remember. It's all kind of a haze now, like kind of set me off in terms of anger. So I broke some things in my apartment. I lived alone, and you know, I would self-harm from time to time. So I did that. And then I had, at some point, smeared like blood on my face, and I came out of it, I guess, enough, or I had enough sense to wash it off, or at least try to. And while I missed my first class, this is when I was in undergrad, I missed my first class that day. I went to my later one, maybe even two. I think it was just one. I went to one later class, I was on campus, and then I also went to work. And when I got home that night, I realized that there was still blood on my face, and that there had been all day long. And in addition to that, you know, I had cuts, especially particularly at work. We would wear these kind of t-shirts. So there were plenty of instances in the time I worked there where, you know, I'd have cuts on me from self-harming, and, you know, had that blood incident, and other things. There was just things I would say or tell people about, or just things that seemed off, or that should have seemed off, I guess. And in hindsight, I don't know how people, maybe they did notice, but that's the thing, is that I wonder to myself, surely all of these people at, you know, in undergrad and all the different jobs I've worked at, and even before I started telling people, like, in grad school, like, so many different points. Oh, and family too. I mean, there's still family that don't know, and friends as well. So many people, and yet no one ever caught it, and it just makes me wonder, like, was I truly that good at hiding it, or like, Like, did people really not notice, or did people just simply not care enough to even ask? Like, did people literally notice the blood on my face and just didn't even care enough to inquire as to what was going on, or see if I was all right, or even tell me? Because I mean, I when I got home and went to the bathroom, I noticed it right away. So I don't know, but why am I bringing this up? I guess it kind of segues into the main topic of this, and that people's natural response to that kind of thing and other things, at least some people's, is to say, well, it's not my responsibility, or you're not our responsibility, and other people's well-being is not my concern, or what have you, or like, I don't care if this person's having this problem, it's not my issue, I got my own stuff going on. And I think that's a really, frankly, fucked up mentality in many different ways. And for one, you hurt yourself in thinking that way, because people will sit here and they'll wonder, why am I lonely? Why am I miserable? Why does my life have no meaning? And so on and so forth. And yet, you think in that way. It's all about you. You don't like care for others, or at least to a limited extent. You just chalk things up to, it's not my responsibility. And well, I think we all have to be responsible to ourselves, or for ourselves. And I know some people, obviously, that's more difficult when you have like a psychotic disorder and you're in an episode or something. That could be in that moment can be difficult. But I think that mentality, though, because other people will share that in your life, right? I mean, you wonder, well, why does like my job suck so much, or why do I get treated like crap? And then it's like, well, your boss or whoever is thinking the exact same way. Well, these people aren't like my responsibility beyond like I need them to do crap and make us money, and or like or big like CEOs, millionaires, billionaires, or tend to be very narcissistic or egocentric, and it's just me with them, and yet those people tend to be very unhappy as well. I mean, they have it all. They're rich, successful. They've made it in life. They're living the American dream, and yet they're still unhappy. Their lives are not worthwhile. They are tasteless, and they're uninspired, and they're just unfulfilled. And yet people aspire, so many, to be like them. And you wonder why you're so fucking miserable. And I think, too, the world would be, I'm confident in saying I know that the world would be a better place if we all worked together, if we cared about each other, if we pooled resources and shared in the wealth, and ideally if we shared more common goals as well. It doesn't mean we all have to agree on everything or want the exact same thing, but I wish there was more of a sort of, I guess, unity. My pencil just went flying. I have an easier time talking when I'm waving the pencil, but unity, if we all did, or the world would be better if we were more unified. If we just gave more of a crap about each other. That doesn't mean you got to go out of your way to do every little thing for another person, or in hell, if it's really that hard to just care a little bit and take a little bit of responsibility for others, and just make sure they're doing well, see how they're doing, if they need anything, then be nice to your coworkers and stuff. If that's really that hard, then could you just maybe not be a prick? I mean, or at the very least, I mean, some people take it much farther. Some people are very, very hateful, and greatly, like, irrationally so. I mean, you can just bring up schizophrenia, or that you have schizophrenia, and that's enough to elicit such anger from people, and it can be over the most like basic things. It's unfortunate that I often feel as if I'm in a world where the average person is much more like poorly adjusted, like what am I trying to say, volatile, irrational, and frankly crazy than I am, which is greatly ironic given that I'm supposed to be the crazy one, or the violent, dangerous one. And I guess it's unfortunate, that people are so hateful, and it's you hurt yourself doing that, because you're not going to live a good life that way. It's not going to make you happy, even if you're like one of the more radical people who like want to see like schizophrenic people just gone from the face of the earth, or you want black people gone, or Jews, or whoever. Like, I hope you know that the average person, say in like World War II Germany, their life still sucks shit. And your life is still going to suck shit afterwards. I presumably, if you're like this, it sucks now. And if it somehow doesn't, I promise you it will. And yeah, even if you had what you wanted, it's still gonna suck. It doesn't have to be that way. But you have to make the first step, I guess is what I'm saying. You have to be willing to change, and you have to be willing to give some semblance of a crap about others, or at least make the effort. You know, even if you don't genuinely care, is it so hard to just, you know, while being genuine, be preferable? Is it so hard, again, to just not be a prick? And I guess I just get upset over, we just tear each other apart and squabble over the most mundane crap. And I feel like we could be doing such big things. The world could be so much better if we all just tried a little harder to be good to each other, to work together, or at the very least not be assholes to each other. And I don't get why we do these things to each other. I truly don't. And we've become, it's strange how we're so interconnected these days, and yet so atomized, such individualist, so selfish. And that's not to say, you know, don't be an individual and, like, you know, have your own, like, unique personality or interests, and be, you know, open about who you are and stuff. Like, not to say don't be individual in that way. What I mean is, like, more in the sense of being, like, self-centered. And I'll probably make separate videos on different things that I think contribute to that sense of us being atomized, and why loneliness is so bad. But I think that's part of the reason is, yeah, that idea of, well, it's not my problem, or it's not my responsibility. And when you have so many people thinking that way more and more, it's like we're all just in our own bubble, and no one gives a shit about anything or anyone beyond themselves. And I think it's stupid to draw the line at, like, say, family, as a lot of people do. Like, people might take responsibility on some level for family members, or they'll care and do things for their family, but beyond that, it's just like, fuck you. And I just think it's a really shitty attitude. And what an arbitrary line. Like, what does it matter whether you're blood relatives or not? Or just family? I guess you could be adopted or whatever, but, like, I just don't see that. I don't get that. And I know this is almost certainly not going to sway anyone who, you know, it doesn't already agree with what I'm saying, and I don't think it's going to move over anyone who is, like, apathetic or self-centered or downright hateful, and malicious. But no one's going to be able to say that I didn't make the effort. And while I would ideally like things to change, I guess I can at least be somewhat satisfied in that I made some sort of an attempt. I know this isn't, like, a great video, but I do what I can. I have symptoms of psychosis all the time, and I'm treatment resistant. FYI, just for the people who tell me to, like, stay medicated or get medicated or whatever, do this, and that, trying to say things about my own health and my illness. Like, trust me, I've been at this a while. I'm probably smarter than you, and I definitely know more about it than you. So you can shut the hell up. I know this is a video about being good to each other, but sometimes you do need to tell, like, your friend, for example, if your friend is about to say something that's gonna get them in a lot of trouble, you should probably tell them to shut the hell up, you know? That would be ideal. I don't know what impact this is gonna have. Most likely no one's gonna see this, maybe like 2 people, but it's depressing. It really is. I was more angry before, and I'm just kind of sad about it. And I guess on the subject of anger, I do wish people would, you know, it's all right to be angry. And I actually will probably make a separate video on how I wish people would just let me be angry, because I feel like with this illness you can't be, because there's such a double standard, so many double standards, and it also plays into stereotypes. But, and it doesn't help when you're a man as well, because the anger is, like, extra bad, I think. Or at least that's what I've perceived, in that, you know, people want you to have more emotions and to not be like stone faced and stone cold. But then if the emotion is anger, then it's a problem, which I'm not like someone who gets angry at other people. It's more I get angry about certain things, but people can kind of perceive that as, you know, especially people who know I have schizophrenia might start to see belligerence or hostility where it does not exist, you know? And like I said, normally I very rarely have I actually had instances where anger was like directed at a person or I was arguing with a person or whatever. I'm usually pretty easygoing, actually. Yeah, but I wish anger went towards more productive things. Like, why direct it at people who've done you no wrong or stupid shit? Like, I was gonna grab like a stuffed animal that I have, like, ooh, I'm a guy with a stuffed animal. That's gonna make some people angry, or like, ooh, I've got my gun, and people don't like that for some reason, and especially because I have schizophrenia, even though it's my legal right, and I advocate for, you know, preserving that right for people who have done nothing to lose it. Or whatever. I can just find any number of things, and some people are just gonna get irrationally angry over it, and it's like, just grow up, dude. Like, get over it. Get over yourself. And it's frustrating. Yeah, I guess that's the crux of it. It's just deeply, deeply frustrating. But, you know, I'm gonna keep writing. I've had some success with that. I'm gonna keep making videos even though no one watches them, and I'm working on putting together a nonprofit because I'm really dissatisfied with the people who try to speak for us, you know, people with schizophrenia, and really just disabled people in general, mostly oriented towards schizophrenia is where my dissatisfaction is, and not to be anti-psychiatry, but some dissatisfaction with the medical system, and some of its problems I understand, don't get me wrong, but that's going to be, I made one video on it, and I'm going to make a whole separate big numbers video on the nonprofit so I can show all the different like estimates for what things would cost, all the different things we would need, how to get funding, the organizational structure. I've been working on that, but obviously that takes a really long time. So video will probably not come out anytime soon, and most people probably won't watch it because it's more like nerd stuff. But you know what? I like being transparent. So I'm gonna make the video anyway, just so if all this does come to fruition, people can go back. Like, I want to keep a consistent record of things. I want this to be the most transparent nonprofit that has ever been. I mean, the product is open source, so I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. But anyway, I'm rambling about something completely separate. Just be good to each other. Doesn't mean you have to be like super nice or bubbly all the time, or you can't be real with people, or that you can't ever have like anger or anything like that, but just be good, please. Or if you are truly incapable of being good, then just don't be bad. It's that simple. Please, please, please. Okay, goodbye.